Hey, what's going on? Today, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about Agile, what Agile is, talk about the Scrum process, which is a kind of a framework around Agile, and talk about why this can help the startup. And I'm doing this today for the startup that I'm working with called Rialtos. So here we go. All right. So first off, Agile was created and really thought up in 2001. So about 15 years ago, a group of guys got together, and a lot of these guys are thought leaders in the development side. Kent Beck, Ward Cunningham, Ron Jeffries, Martin Fowler, Bob Martin, Ken Schwaber, Jeff Sutherland, Dave Thomas. These guys all got together and thought there's got to be a better way to develop software. And they came up with this thing called Agile. And you can read what the official definition of it is, but really what Agile is it's a bunch of tools that help software development organizations or any organization really helps them um, deliver things more quickly, with higher quality, with more transparency, and be able to adapt to change. Now, a lot of folks think Agile is a hard and fast framework or process for how you develop, but it's really not. The four things that came out of this discussion with these thought leaders were what they call the Agile Manifesto, and those are individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. So those are the only things that came out of this Agile discussion. There wasn't a hard and fast rule for how you do things. So it's very interesting how some folks interpret Agile nowadays. But let's get into why Agile. Well, with Agile, you get customer input early and often. You're always talking to the customer, doing customer discovery, getting quick feedback from the customer. You have quicker responses to business drivers. You can do 2-week releases, you can do 1-week releases. I prefer in a smaller organization to do 1-week releases because business drivers or customer things can come up very, very quickly. The team increases velocity by knowing what to work on before you start the release, or as they call them in Agile or Scrum, sprints. There's no more spinning the wheels. You're not working on things and they're changing as you go. You really lock in to that 1 or 2 week release, what you're doing, and you work on it and finish it. There's more consistent and repeatable process for the team, the entire company. Everybody knows what happens on the Monday. Everybody knows what happens on a Tuesday. The business knows that once a week or once every 2 weeks you release software, you get into a rhythm. And rhythm is critical for teams. The other part is there's checkpoints. You keep the releases on schedule. You do checkpoints every morning. We'll talk a little bit about those stand-ups. You encourage continuous improvement. There's something at the end of every sprint called a retrospective, where you talk about what worked for your team, what didn't work, and you try and change 1 or 2 things a sprint to be better. So you're every week or two you're getting better, and it may sound like a long period of time, but if you think about that over a 52-week year, that's 52 things you're getting better at over time, and the team just improves, and the culture gets better. They get faster at what they're doing, better estimates, higher quality. It's a really cool feature of Agile. And last is transparency in the product and process. One of the bigger parts of Agile is to really open up and have everybody who's part of the organization, whether it be CEO, CFO, folks in other organizations, and everybody really on the team, you're able to be transparent, show these things that you're working on, do demos pretty regularly for everyone to celebrate what you've accomplished. So it really helps, and then folks can have input. Hey, why did you do it that way? That really didn't help the whole company. Can you try it this way? So the transparency, especially in a small organization, is critical. So what's the difference? What did folks used to do? Back 20 years ago when I started in development, there was something called waterfall, which was a really long release process. I remember 2-year releases for a company that I worked for at one point. You do a long requirements gathering, long design session, long development, You then test it up after the development was complete, and then you put it into maintenance mode. Well, if you think about that, if requirements are a month or two, design are a month or two, implementation is a year, verification, and then maintenance, that's such a long process. What if the customer changes their mind in the middle? Or what if something happens in the industry that you're in, and it changes and the wind's blowing a different direction? How do you adapt to change? You have to start over. So that's why the way we used to develop software, a lot of times folks uh, would release something and then it immediately have to get patched, um, or releases would push out another year because things changed in the middle and you have to start over from scratch. So it really helps you bring in the releases, adjust to change as quickly as possible, and go from there. So what's Scrum? Scrum is actually a framework around Agile. Agile, like I told you before, is just a bunch of tools to help you, bunch of tools, bunch of methodologies to help teams release faster, develop faster. Agile is really some terminology around it, so you can help kick off teams, and it's really the most used. There's a couple different Agile frameworks. There's a few actually. There's Extreme, there's Scrum, there's Kanban. So Scrum is probably the most used, and it's the one that's the most defined, and it's what I like to use to kick off teams for the first time, because everything is so well defined. So let's get into it. First off, here's a funny little graphic, but there's really two groups on a Scrum team. There's pigs and chickens, and the the pigs are considered to be invested. I'm sorry. The pigs are considered to be involved, and the chickens are involved. Pigs are invested. So I'll get into what that means in a second. Sorry. um, so let's talk about the roles in Scrum. There's the product owner. They're the voice of the customer. They really are accountable for ensuring that the team delivers exactly what the business wants. They write customer-centric items, requirements. We call them user stories in Agile. They prioritize them depending on customer needs. They work closely with development if it's a development task to figure out how high it goes up. Um, Competition, everything. And then they add them to what we call a product backlog. And what a product backlog is really just the requirements for the system. Then there's the team. The team is responsible for delivering the product. It involves the development, QA, UI, UX. Sometimes there'll be a business admin on the team. You name it. The folks that are involved in building the product are the team. And then the Scrum Master. Scrum Master is really not a leader. All the Scrum Master does is really help facilitate things. They act as a buffer between the team and anything distracting. They ensure the process is being used as the team has agreed to do it. And they help protect the team, keep them focused on the tasks at hand. And they also help them if the team looks like it's going off the rails a little bit. The Scrum Master help kind of hop in and get them back on track. One important note about a Scrum Master is the more mature a team gets and is able to do more self-management, the Scrum Master becomes less and less necessary. So I've actually worked on a few teams where the Scrum Master, about a year in, wasn't really necessary because the team really was able to run it on themselves, self-manage, get themselves back on track if they got off track. They had one person help them buffer from distractions. So, but the Scrum Master is critical at the beginning. The chickens themselves, those are the stakeholders. Internal, external customers, vendors, managers, you name it. Chickens can come to any meeting. They can attend any demo, anything they want to do. But they're just the external group, the stakeholders watching and seeing how the team is going. So the pigs are basically the team. The chickens are the stakeholders. Some details about Scrum. Here's some of the meetings that are part of the Scrum process. There's a daily stand-up, and we'll go into each one of these in detail in a second. Daily stand-up, there's sprint planning or sprint kickoff, there's grooming meetings, there's a sprint review that includes a demo, and then a retrospective. Some of the artifacts that come out of Scrum, There's the product backlog, and what this is the entire requirements list, the wish list, if you will, for what you want to get accomplished. If you're developing a product, it's the wish list for things you want to put into the product. If you're not developing a product, if you have a marketing plan and you're using Scrum for marketing, it's the whole list of things that you want to get accomplished for your marketing group. Now, the sprint backlog is a little different from the product backlog. The sprint backlog is exactly what you're going to work on in that sprint, in that week or 2 weeks. So it's actually a more detailed list, and the team has agreed upon those things at the beginning of the sprint. And then there's a burn down chart. This really gives you a very easy status, very transparent to everybody out there, day by day in the sprint, how the team is doing. And it generally should follow this 45-degree angle. A lot of times it's a little bit more jagged than that, which is okay as long as it hits that 0 at the end. And what that means is that the team has completed everything that they agreed to complete. All right, so let's first start off with user stories. And what are user stories? It's really the process of writing requirements that will be prioritized and accomplished during a sprint. You can start these off as what I call epics. And what an epic is just an idea. It doesn't have any details to it, but it's just an idea. And then you break that down into smaller features. I'll give you an example. An epic could be, I want the user to be able to change their password. You break that down into smaller stories to say, when the user, there should be a request or forgot password link. Another story could be, as a user, when I hit forgot password, I enter my email address and hit submit. And as the system, I'll send the user an email with a forgot password verification link that they click to change their password. And then you can see you break down into very specific pieces of data, because those specific things are very helpful to the team when they're trying to figure out what to build. The product team usually creates these and calls a meeting to get everybody to brainstorm on the ideas. And they format it. This is a really easy way to format it that really helps folks. As a user, as an admin, as a whatever, I want to, and then what the requirement is. And then this is a really important part, so that the benefit. This explains to the team why it's important. And then you add acceptance criteria to that to help the team who's actually doing the work, and then the testing team afterwards to be able to accept it as complete. So let's get into what some of the meetings are. The daily stand-up is really just a quick sync-up every morning. The entire team gets together. Each person on the team gives a status to the members. They answer then the status is 3 questions. What did I do yesterday? What am I going to work on today? And is there anything blocking me? And as you can see with a small team, this should really take just a few minutes. But it really should go no longer than 5 minutes. What I like to tell team members is, if you start to talk about something for longer than a minute, let's offline it and keep going with your status, and we'll offline it with the people who are critical to that discussion. You don't want it to be fast, or you don't want it to be slow. You want to get through these things pretty quickly. It's just a checkpoint. And the really key part there is not what did you do or what are you working on. We're not checking on how people are doing. But is there anything blocking? Because if something's blocking you, another team member can hop in and help. The Scrum Master can help if it's an external something blocking you. But you really want to get those blockages stopped as quickly as possible, or you want to get through those blockages as quickly as possible so you can keep moving. And anybody can attend these meetings at any time. Chickens can attend them. Anybody can. It's just important that the team are the ones giving the status, and the chickens are just listening in. The other thing that's interesting here is I've seen some remote teams use maybe a Slack channel to do their status. Instead of standing together, they'll say by a certain time every morning. I really prefer teams to do a video call or a call if they're remote on this. But if that's not possible, a Slack channel is due. Just check in. Be transparent with what you're working on, what you accomplished, and if there's something blocking you. But that face-to-face is really critical for team culture if you can do it. So if you are remote, I would highly recommend a video call, video conference to do this. it's great to see everybody's smiling face when you do these. The sprint planning and kickoff, this is a meeting that happens at the beginning of every sprint. So if you do a weekly sprint, you may want to do it on Monday morning, or you may want to do it Friday afternoon. It's your call. And what you first do is you figure out what's my velocity? How much can my team get done or regularly gets done every week? And you determine that. Does anybody have any days off? Will affect that. Any holidays, stuff like that. So you determine what your budget is. And then you determine what the sprint makeup's going to look like. Is this going to be a defect-heavy sprint, or do you want to work on some technical debt from development, or are they user stories from the product folks? So you determine what percentages you want to work there, and then you just start to discuss. You discuss the defects, you present the user stories, and then discuss technical debt. And then from there, the team will go through and refine the stories. They can task them out if they want, but they'll put an ultimate estimate on there on how long it'll take. And I like to do estimates in hours or days. I just think it's a lot easier than than story points. There's less unknown there. You know how long 15 minutes is or one day is. So it really helps you bring in what the velocity could look like and easier conversation. But you refine the stories, break them down, you estimate them, and then you commit to a certain amount of stories that you're going to complete. These are the stories we're going to finish this sprint. I like to put a few extra at the end just in case the team gets through them faster than expected. But at the end is really important for that commitment. Everybody on the team says, I understand what we're working on this sprint, and here's exactly what we're going to finish this sprint. And so what that does is that tells everybody, tells the team, gives them, they know exactly what they have to do that whole week, but it also gives the business and maybe even customers an idea of, hey, at the end of this week, this is what's going to be released. And think about how critical that is. If you've got a customer service team that needs to know, if you've got marketing folks that need to market something by the end of the week, they'll know exactly what's coming every week, and it just gets your team and your company in a really good flow. There's another pretty regular meeting called grooming, and what this is a look ahead to what's coming in the future. The sprint planning, you talked about specific things you're working on in that sprint. Well, what a grooming is a product owner will present those epics that I talked about, those ideas, or user stories to the team and say, hey, these are coming in future sprints. Maybe next sprint, maybe the sprint after. But let's talk about them. Let me figure out if there's more questions that need to be answered. Is it really something we want to work on? And the team looks at those at a feature level. They do some design, some technical discussions. They can do those in separate meetings if you want. But the team will review those stories, break them down into smaller stories, fill gaps at necessary, and then at the end, the team can give a very high-level estimate on how big they think this is. Now, it's a sizing estimate, not a detailed estimate. So you may want to say, hey, this is a small, medium, large, or this is a quarter sprint ticket or a half sprint ticket so that way the product owner can slot those in future sprints, slot a few of them together in future sprints. It's not going to be the most accurate estimate, but it's just a sizing to help the product owner. The product owner may even say too, hey, this is such a big ticket, I don't think we're going to work on this. I'm going to kind of throw it out. But again, the teams working on the items get an idea for what's coming in the future. They are able to start thinking about it, and the product owner can slot it in the future sprints. Smaller companies, startups that only have a few folks on the team, they don't do as much grooming. Grooming's done more on a kind of a hallway conversation, or pop your head over to the person who's working across from you. Hey, this is coming. Have you thought about this? So it doesn't have to be a formal meeting in a smaller organization. It's usually just some of those ad hoc conversations. You can groom very quickly on things. I talked to you guys about this before, the sprint review and sprint retrospective. They happen at the end of every sprint. You usually do it maybe on the Friday, the last Friday of the sprint, or the Monday after. And the review is interesting. What you want to do is talk about what you accomplished last sprint, and you do a demo. You want to demo and really praise and celebrate the work that you accomplished in that sprint, because it's important. The team worked hard. Here's what they accomplished. Isn't this cool? And you can also make that a more formal demo where you invite the chickens, the stakeholders, to see what you've accomplished. If they can't make it, I highly recommend to record that demo so that you can send it out to folks to let them know what's coming. And then you can talk about, hey, was the goal achieved this sprint? Did we finish everything that we wanted to do? I like to combine the review and the retrospective into the same meeting, because then you usually roll right into, you discuss whether your goal was achieved and then talk about how you can improve it. I like to have teams discuss really 3 topics in there. What did the team do well last sprint? That's really important to start. What were the challenges for the team in the sprint? And how can the team improve next sprint? And in here, it's really important, don't try and improve too many things. I really tell teams all the time, just improve one thing a sprint. You'll get very quick change over time without having to improve. In humans in general, we don't respond to change that well. So if you're just improving one thing a sprint, it's a little bit easier for a team to get better gradually. And I think that's the healthiest way for a team to improve, and go from there. And these are really interesting things. I'd highly recommend that teams write down their operating agreements, how they operate, what their meeting times are, meeting days, what's important to them, what their core values are. And then as things change, you can update your operating agreements so that any folks that pop onto the team they'll know exactly how the team works. So this review retrospective is, at the end of this, you'll probably tweak those operating agreements. So this is a sample development schedule for a 1-week release. The team may kick off early Monday morning, maybe even Friday afternoon, depends. I've had folks with remote resources in India do it Friday afternoon, so the Indian team can work on Sunday. Sunday night is their Monday, but local U.S. teams, a lot of times they'll do a Monday kickoff. And then they do a stand-up every day, usually the first thing in the morning. A lot of teams like to do stand-up first thing in the morning when everybody's in. Like to do groomings once a week or every 2 weeks on a Wednesday. It doesn't have to be every week, but obviously if you're just starting off, you want to get the team up to speed with what's coming in the future. But again, that grooming for a really small development team, that may be more ad hoc. But the stand-ups happen every day, and then on Friday you do your demo and retrospective, and then the next Monday you start the same. So every Monday I know what I'm doing. Every Tuesday I know what I'm doing. Every Wednesday, and it may this may seem like a lot of meetings, but let me be clear: the kickoff shouldn't be longer than an hour. Grooming shouldn't be longer than an hour. In fact, I recommend you time box it to an hour and only talk about things for an hour. Demo retrospective, only an hour. The stand-ups are 15 minutes apiece. And so if you think about it, that's really 4 hours a week of meetings at most. It really should be less, but 4 hours a week of meetings for a 1-week release. That's 10% of your time talking to the team, doing design sessions, celebrating the work that you did. So the other 90% of your time, you're really knocking it out and finishing the things that are on your plate. So that's it. That's really what it looks like. You got the kickoff, you got the stand-ups, you've got the review retrospective. Teams are working in a tool to track. I didn't talk anything about tooling, what teams use to track items. There's some great tools out there. Trello is a really great tool for tracking items through a process. Jira, a little bit more advanced, and it's not really that expensive, but gives you some really great advanced tools and links into source code repositories, continuous integration tools. That's another great option. There's a few others out there. I think most startups like to really start in Trello because it's very simple, and I'd highly recommend that as well. So anyway, that's Agile and Scrum in a really quick discussion. If you have any questions or any concerns at all, definitely reach out to me and I'll help you answer any way I can. But that's that. Thank you. Thanks for your time.